That speech will deal with our legislative agenda, and that is focused on making life better for Alberta families. The throne speech will outline new measures to create jobs and to make life more affordable, as well as to protect the public services that Albertans rely on. It's going to outline further steps to help Albertans get good jobs, building on the steps we've taken to provide new apprenticeships and training, giving young people summer jobs, and putting Albertans to work building the highways, hospitals, and schools our province and the economy needs to thrive. It's going to build on our efforts to get pipelines approved and built, and on our efforts to diversify Alberta's economy. This session, you're going to see government take more action on issues that matter to most Albertans. That action includes new measures to help with the family budget and to make life more affordable, to build on initiatives like our electricity rate cap, tuition freeze, and new measures to help families save money on their energy bill. This work begins tomorrow with the announcement of our first bill. There will be a technical briefing tomorrow for media on Bill 1, so I'm not going to deal with that today. While we work to make life better for Albertans, we'll also continue to find ways to reduce the overall growth of government spending, such as cutting CEO salaries and doing away with ridiculous and out-of-touch perks like golf memberships. We're going to continue to protect the public services that matter to families, like a world-class health system and a great education for our kids. All in all, we're going to continue to show Albertans that governments can actually be in the corner of regular families rather than in the pockets of conservative outsiders. While the Wild Rose and the PCs continue to fight over who gets to cut the minimum wage, cancel new hospital projects, and allow door-to-door energy sales people to take advantage of our seniors, we're going to remain focused on making life better for regular families. And that's why Albertans put us here, to have a government that sticks up for them. And I'd be happy to take any questions, and I can go into a little bit about the legislation as well.
Sorry, you mentioned Bill 1. What is Bill 1?
Well, as I said, Graham, it's you're going to get a. It's called Bill 1.
What area is it in?
It is an area of government policy.
You're proposing new measures to help with family budgets. Can you give me a little more detail of what that means?
Well, certainly there's going to be a legislation that will help protect buyers of new homes, to ensure stable and affordable electricity prices, and to strengthen consumer protection. So those are all packages.
Sorry, Brian, labor legislation bringing through?
There is under consideration legislation to modernize our labor legislation in this province to protect workers, and that is not finalized, but we want to modernize the working conditions of Albertans.
You may or may not have to.
May or may not.
Is that union focused?
I can't really say any more because it hasn't been finalized. The actual bill is still under consideration.
And you mentioned energy bills?
Yes. Well, we're hoping to protect consumers by capping the price of electricity and making sure that electricity remains affordable for Alberta families. It's part of our whole approach of trying to make life better for Albertans and Alberta families, and a key part of that is to make sure that people can afford the necessities that they need in their lives. And that's a major focus of this session for our government.
Can you tell us how many bills you'll be bringing in, roughly?
I think we've probably got about 15 right now in more or less a state to bring forward. There may be 2 or 3 more.
Yes, Thomas.
So it's a fairly robust legislative agenda, and we're looking forward to good, solid debate. We think there's a really solid program there for Albertans and Alberta families.
Does Thomas have to indicate to Thomas Dang if he's going to bring forward a private members, or how does that work?
I believe his private members bill is on the order paper.
You've recently received a letter from Federal Minister Mark Garneau about texting and driving. Do you have a response to that?
Well, I responded yesterday in a preliminary way to Mr. Garneau. We certainly take his point seriously, and I told him we're going to be looking at this issue and studying the proposals, and we'll come ready to discuss this issue at the next federal, provincial, territorial ministers' meeting. Obviously, texting and driving is a very serious matter, and is a cause of considerable accidents. And I think we need to deal with it in a very serious manner. Obviously, if it's going to be considered on the same basis of as impaired driving, which has been one of the suggestions that's out there, then that has to be federal legislation. But we'll also look at what steps we can take to strengthen Alberta's protection against people who are driving when they're not giving due care to the operation of their vehicle. We've already increased the included demerits for that offense, which is an important deterrent, because people who do it repeatedly then stand to lose their license. It's not just a matter of writing a check for the tickets as they come in.
Do you think there should be kind of uniform policy across the country?
Well, I think that's Minister Garneau's view, and we're certainly open to those discussions.
Mr. Mason, you said that this is throne speech number 3. I'm wondering how number 3 compares to the previous 2 in terms of your focus or the message that you want to convey.
Well, I like to think we get a little better every time, and I think this one will have a real focus on making life better for Alberta families, and in particular making life more affordable, to help people through difficult economic times that we've been facing in Alberta. We're certainly moving into a recovery year, but people are still hurting, and the government is in their corner. And is going to take further steps to try and make sure that they can pay for the basic things that they and their families need.
Does it feel as though your government is approaching the halfway point of the mandate?
Well, it not only feels like that, I think objectively it's true.
But has it been, does it feel like you've been at it for a long slog? Has it been hard?
Feels like 2 years, almost 2 years. That's what it feels like.
You said you were going to introduce legislation hoping to cap the price of electricity.
Mhm.
How does that differ from the 4-year cap that was introduced last fall?
Well, in terms of the legislative piece, you're just going to have to wait and see what the legislation actually says. But I think you'll find that it will strengthen those measures.
Going back to the point just raised a second ago by Kim, you're at the halfway point. Do we see a shift in focus or tone in terms of the government's behavior?
I don't know, Graham, if you could say a shift in the government's behavior, but certainly a very active legislative agenda has been part of the first term, or the first half of the term. And I think we've made really good progress. We obviously have come through a very difficult economic time and a financial time, and there are issues that need to be resolved relative to that. So I think as we enter the recovery phase in the second half of our term, that you're going to see a shift as we position Alberta to take maximum advantage of that recovery, and to create long-term stability in terms of our finances and in terms of the government, of the economy.
Just to follow up, sorry, just the tone in the House, will it actually be affected, do you think? Or how will the tone be based on the fact that the PCs are going through a leadership race right now? They'll be picking a leader in
Yes.
2 weeks from now. Is that going to influence what's actually happening in the House? Because this whole Unite the Right issue.
Yeah, well, that really depends on the opposition, Graham, more than us. The Premier's been very clear that in whatever form the Conservatives organize themselves in the next election, we're going to be ready, and we're going to be organized, and we're going to be bringing forward a very positive agenda for Albertans going forward, and we're going to have a really strong campaign as we go forward, and a strong program to help Alberta families. So she's been clear. It doesn't matter whether there's one party or 3 parties or whatever it is. Our government is going to continue to have a positive agenda, and will fight the next election aggressively.
It doesn't sound like, Minister,
sounds like
that
you're ready
you say we're in the recovery phase now. Are we going to see a corresponding sort of perhaps reduction in the deficit, or is there going to be some action taken now on reducing that or taking?
I think you can ask those questions of the Minister of Finance. You probably would like to know when the budget is coming down.
They've already announced it.
We just,
How do they do that to me? I just,
Minister,
okay.
will you be delivering on your promise to eliminate school fees in this city?
I think that there's going to be some consideration of whether or not that's done or not, and I think you just have to stay tuned.
So that's a yes?
No,
Is that a
that's
yes?
not a yes. That was a completely neutral answer.
So might
That was
be
my
Bill
best
White?
effort at a non-answer.
third quarter, Minister, you had to reprofile some projects. Was the Calgary Cancer Center one of those projects?
No, I don't think so.
What
No.
was reprofiled?
A number of, some of the schools where we hadn't identified, you know, or school boards in some cases hadn't identified the sites for the schools. Some projects that were delayed because of weather. We had a very wet construction season, particularly in the southern part, and some were delayed as a result of the forest fire in Fort McMurray. So what wasn't built this past year is going to be built in the coming year.
Can you talk about the climate leadership plan in this session? Are we going to see any new additions or announcements to it, especially given some of the feedback that you've gotten from Albertans on it?
I don't expect that there's going to be major changes to the climate leadership change, no.
How come Wildrose hasn't got a copy of, won't be getting an embargoed copy of the throne speech this time?
They never do, and when I was spent, how many? Close to 15 hard years in opposition, I never saw the throne speech until it was handed out in the, yes, I think, Graham, actually, to be honest, they gave one to us by mistake one year, and they made sure it never happened again.
Was that fair? They did.
Pardon me? No, the throne speech is read to the public for the first time, and that includes the opposition when the Lieutenant Governor reads the speech. That's the way it's always been done. That's the way it's going to continue to be done.
In regards to Bill 1, do you plan to introduce it tomorrow or next week?
I believe it'll be introduced tomorrow. There will be an embargoed briefing for media tomorrow morning on Bill 1. And I think the public will see it for the first time in the afternoon. Is that not correct? Yes.
After the throne speech.
After the throne speech, yeah.
We're going to the phone lines next. Operator, can you take the next question?
Minister, I know you're going to tell me what's in Bill 1 because I'm in Calgary, right? Thank you for that. Number two, what do you expect from particularly from the PCs? And you've got two opposition parties that are totally beside themselves with navel gazing and internal fighting. And the PCs are neither this nor that. I just wonder if you expect a very easy ride from a confused opposition in this session. I don't know if I expect it as much as hope for it. You know, I never underestimate the opposition. You know, I would expect that they're going to be working hard to do the job that they're there to do, which is to hold the government to account. I'm not an expert or not really the person to go to ask about the impact of their internal struggles on their performance in the House. That's, I think, something for people to judge once they've seen them in action. Thanks.
Any further questions?
You didn't answer Don's first question.
Which was?
Oh,
What's Bill 1?
Yeah, I know I didn't.
What are you guys looking forward to this session?
Pardon me?
What are you guys looking for? What are you guys
I'm actually looking forward to actually being able to get some stuff done. I like the stuff that actually focuses on people's pocketbooks, on their ability to you know, cover the basic costs of their family and have a little bit of money left over, and in difficult times. To me, that's our job, right? We've had a serious recession, and just because the economy is recovering this year doesn't mean everybody's going to be back to work. So, and some people are working less hours. So it's really important that we focus on that, in my view, as a government, and do our best to help Alberta families get through this, because there is a recovery coming, and I think it's coming this year. The second half of this year, by all accounts of the leading economists, is going to be a significant recovery, and next year even better. So we need to help people through that patch and help prepare the economy to take advantage of that recovery. And when we're talking about some of the capital items, you'll see that that we are really working hard to make sure that we maximize the recovery in this province.
And when it comes to actual timing of, there's been some criticism of starting early and running late nights, and the actual timing of debates happening in the House. Is there any thought to change that this session at all? Or?
No, actually, I gave a report as House Leader last year to the committee, I think it was the Member Services Committee, in terms of how our morning sessions were working, and we've actually substantially reduced the number of hours that we sit in the evenings. So it's having some success. Obviously, as we get close to the end of the session, the opposition starts to dig in. They pick one or two bills that they're going to, you know, try and filibuster, and then we need to go to some night sittings in order to finish in a timely fashion. But it's been my preference actually to add an extra week at the end of the session, or two, I think, last time, rather than to, you know, run meetings till 2 in the morning and 3 in the morning, as the previous government often did.
We have another reporter on the line. Operator, can you take the next question?
Our next question comes from Sherry Noreen of Speedcraft. Your line is open. Thank you. I'm wondering what specific action the government will be taking in working with Indigenous people this session, and particularly moving forward with the recent framework agreement with the Métis Nation of Alberta.
Well, I think you probably have to get an answer from the Minister of Indigenous Affairs a bit later. But that's been a major initiative for us. We've established a number of tables to deal in the case of Treaty 8, but certainly we're going to be working hard as a government to implement the agreement with the Métis Nation, and we're going to continue to pursue an agenda of inclusion and establishing respectful, equal partnerships with First Nations and with the Métis Nation, and that's going to remain an important priority for our government.
Minister, can you remind me, what is the government's position on, what has the Premier said on the sales tax? No sales tax?
Yes.
In this mandate, right?
Yes, that's right.
But after that, there's been no commitment one way or the other, right?
I don't believe so.
Do you know, is that, because I'm trying to figure out what was being said in third quarter, is that your government saying you're not gonna get off the roller coaster, but if third quarter is any indication, you're not gonna be making any meaningful spending cuts either. So that leaves basically taxes, right? Either you hike the existing ones across the board quite a bit, or you bring in a sales tax. Is that something that is being contemplated after 2019? And would you run on that with this government?
I am not aware of any plans in the government to consider sales taxes. I am not the person to ask about whether or not we would run on that or not. I think that's something you could ask the Premier.
How do you feel about sales tax? First, you must have.
You sure I do?
How do you feel about it?
Yeah. Well, I think we need to tread very carefully, and I need to tread very carefully on that matter, and so I am.
We're going to take our final question from the phone line. Operator, can you take the next question?
Our next question comes from Lucas Mayer of 660 News. Your line is open.
Hi, Minister. Thanks for taking my question. Just more so about what we might see in the House. We saw the legislative session get a little bit ugly in the last one in terms of kind of the arguments back and forth between the NDP and the Wildrose specifically. And I was just curious, but what we're seeing in terms of this increased polarization politically, both in the United States as well as nationally here, are you at all concerned that the tension and the back and forth in the House could get even uglier this session?
Well, I certainly hope not. I I certainly think that good debate and honest, even strong and vigorous disagreement is important to our political process, and I don't shy away from that at all. You know, I have been concerned, as have most of my colleagues, I think, about the tone of some of the criticism, the threats, the hateful comments and so on that you often see on social media. So that's affecting the tone of public discourse in the province, I think, in a negative way, and I really you know, regret that development. But I'm hopeful that the opposition is going to continue to put forward their case vigorously and maintain a respectful tone, and we will certainly strive to do the same.
Can I ask the minister, I mean, you've got another year or so, I guess, to make up your mind, but have you decided yet on whether you're going to be putting your name forward in 2019?
No.
Thought about it? You thought about it?
I'm just trying to concentrate on my job. I have 3 jobs. That's more jobs than I've ever had in my life, and keeps me busy.
What's Bill 1?
And I'm going to continue to try and do a good job and not answer questions like that.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Yep.